Lit, lit, lit. Reels, live, lit, lit, lit. Right? The revolution is lit, lit, lit.
Uhuru, comrades, and welcome to today's Omali Taught Me Sunday study, live with the leader of the African nation, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Today, we have a special program. We will be watching a powerful, well-known, and highly regarded presentation given by the chairman over a decade ago, titled, "If Jesus Was a Revolutionary, How Can Your Preacher Be Such an Uncle Tom?" You may have viewed this presentation before, as it is available on the Burning Spear TV YouTube page. And for those who will be hearing it for the first time, you are in for a sermon like no other. Following the video, we will have a discussion with Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement President, Kalambayi Andenet, to discuss the importance of this analysis provided by the chairman in the video. Before we begin today's study, I ask that you take this moment right now to like and share this video and tag someone to participate in today's lesson. Let's broaden the reach of this discussion. Let's get these live shares up by at least 100 more before we start If Jesus Was a Revolutionary. So comment shared in the chat section for us to let me know that you're doing it. So if you're on Facebook, YouTube, make sure to share this video, share this video, get as many people onto this discussion as possible. This powerful presentation has received high praises since it was initially posted, with comments like, "One of the greatest sermons I've ever heard, so inspiring. This teaching is the most powerful. So glad I came across this King Omali Yeshitela. Wow, speaking truth. That's our ancestors speaking through him. I'm here to listen and learn. He does a nice job of translating the original text from a revolutionary perspective. This is not what you would hear this is not what you would ever hear on a Sunday morning because, as he said, religion maintains the masses and keeps them passive. I personally am not a Christian, but this lecture right here puts a lot of things in proper perspective. Great work. Wow, we need a preacher like this in every neighborhood. This man only speaks the truth. I cannot thank you enough. Your words bring understanding to so much. Thank you. Wow, the spirit of Malcolm indeed emanates from this man. I like the background with Malcolm's portrait, which you guys will see. Dead Prez brings me here. I can see why they use so many points he makes. This brother is a gem, salute. And I stumbled on this YouTube presentation, best Bible lesson I have seen. I love this man and can listen to him all day. Everything he says is on point. He knows the Bible better than the traditional preacher. So those are just some of the reviews. The praises go on and on for this presentation. And those are just some of the reviews that you can see posted on the Burning Spear YouTube channel under this If Jesus Was a Revolutionary video. So now we are going to air it for you. If Jesus Was a Revolutionary, How Can Your Preacher Be Such an Uncle Tom by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Let's roll video.
You see, I have the Bible up here. It's a pretty big Bible. I'm not a preacher. But I brought the Bible, and we've been talking around this discussion now for the last 2-3 weeks or more, and there's a reason for that. Because everybody who came to this meeting today had to pass these institutions with the parking lots crammed, full of people. And these things are called churches, where the people are. And the churches, in many ways, become instruments to keep people away from struggle. And the question really before us, in my view, is that how can these people say that they follow Jesus? Or if the historical Jesus that we know about is real, and there's evidence that he was real, he was a revolutionary. And if Jesus was a revolutionary, then the question is, how can your preacher be such an Uncle Tom? And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at all these churches filled with African people. And I want to tell you something about it. I'm going to tell you what your preacher won't tell you. And you might not like me for saying it. When you go up and listen to this old silver-tongued, slick bootlicker, Reverend Chicken Bone, you don't have to be defenseless. You can go and you can know how to read this thing when you read it. But the first thing you need to know is that at the time of Jesus' birth, and we've talked about that in this meeting before, and I want to say some more about it. At the time of Jesus' birth, the Jews, like most people in the world that was known at that time, were dominated by the Romans. They were living under colonial domination, colonial bondage, just like African people here, and just like we have in various places around the world been living. The Jews lived under Roman domination. The Romans had what they call an empire. An empire is where a government of a people not only dominate and rule their own people, but many other peoples around the world. The Roman Empire was comparable to what America is today. America is an empire. It feels like it can tell people what to do, and if you don't do it, we'll attack you. You can't have this kind of weapon or that kind of weapon. We'll blow you up. We'll take your oil. We'll do all these other kinds of things to you. That's how Rome was during the day. And except it was a more honest, they call it an empire today, even though if you read certain kinds of documents and certain kinds of papers being written by the thinking representatives of the white power today, more and more they are referring to America as an empire. Except they don't call Bush an emperor, they call him the president. Well, back then they were more honest, they called him the emperor. Rome had an emperor. An emperor, an empire, you can see the connection between the names. An emperor is someone who rules over an empire. Now, the thing is that the people who are citizens of the empire, they live well because they live off the fruits of what the emperor brings from all over the world, all the oppressed peoples of the world. You find all their resources coming to the empire, coming to Rome. And they were coming from every place. The Jews, and I'm speaking of Jews, but Jews are just Semites who lived in what they now call the Middle East. Arabs are Semites, and there were all other kinds of people, Syrians and what have you, who are also Arabs, etc., who lived in the same area. And all of them had to pay tribute to Rome. So the Romans lived pretty well. The Rome, of course, is in Europe, as you know, right? Rome is in Europe. What they call Italy now is the headquarters of what Rome was, white people. And although it may or may not have been an issue at the time, the Jews were not white people. Jews got white lately, relatively lately. And the Jews were dominated by the Romans. And the Jews didn't want to be dominated by the Romans because any thinking human being wants to be self-determining. They don't want somebody else over them. They don't want somebody else dominating them, do they? They want to be a self. You can't have a national dignity if every time you look up there's somebody who's telling you how you have to do things and when you have to do it. And in fact, set terms for you say you can't even act like a black person. Oh, you can't. Not in America if you're going to succeed. And everybody in here know that's the truth. You can't. If you be too black, you will not succeed. You can't go on the job being black, right? You can't go nowhere being too black. You remember when they used to not hire you if you had dreadlocks, if you had cornrows, if you had afros, or any of those stuff. You can't be too black. Only when white people started getting dreadlocks was it cool. Yeah. So, and when they found out that dreadlocks didn't mean nothing for a lot of these old sellouts, and sometimes he had a dreadlock and a processed brain. You had dreadlock hair and a perm on your brain. You understand? So they discovered that, and they said, let the Negroes have dreadlocks. But that's how empire runs it. And when you have an empire, people are asking the question like about what happened to Mtundu. And Mtundu spoke out, and the police attacked him. And white people say, oh, the police don't act that way. And it's true, the police do not act that way. If you're citizens of the empire. If you were Roman citizens, the Roman police didn't treat the white people in Rome the way they was treating the Jews who were living in Israel. Treat you differently. Because one was a citizen and then one was a subject. There's a difference in being a citizen and a subject, right? So when Jesus was born, Rome was living, the Jews were living under Roman domination, and they had the same kinds of problems that you got today. Among the problems that you have when somebody else runs your affairs, you can't get along with each other. You notice that? And you say it all the time. Niggas just can't get together. You say it all the time. And one of the reasons it's hard for you to get along with each other is because you displace your anger. You mad with the ruling class. You stay mad with white people, but you done found out you disguise it even to yourself. Now you get insulted all the time. Almost every day you get insulted. And the reason you don't go behind the counter and snatch them up and do something damaging to them because they're going to say, call security. And before you know it, the police is going to be there. And then they're going to have you on the ground with your head in the cement, whooping you up and putting you in jail. And you're going to go to jail, and the white people going to say, yes, they did whatever the hell they said they did, and you're going to do some time. That's your reality. And you mad as hell. Your anger gets displaced. You ain't going to mess with that white person because you know what's going to happen to you. So with this displaced anger, who you take it out on? You take it out on the one who's closest to you. Take it out on your wife, on your husband, on your brothers, your sisters, your neighbors, and what have you. You stay mad. That's why when the brother step on your shoe, you want to kill him, cut him, do something to him, and the party, you know you do, on the one hand. But on the other hand, white people do stuff to you every day and do stuff to you that deserves a death penalty, and you don't even talk back to them, right? And so you have this displaced anger all the time. And the same thing was true with the Jews. Jews always upset. They say, well, Africans in this country got the highest rate of high blood pressure in the world. African men got the highest rate of prostate cancer than anybody on earth. And you don't know why. I know why. Because you got this repressed anger. You stay sick because you are so angry and you can't do anything with this anger, because if you do, white power would drop down on you like a lead balloon, and you know it. And so you contain and hold your anger into yourself. Then you also a little disturbed because white people have told you that if you want to succeed, in order to succeed in a white man's world, you got to act white. You don't feel white. And when you look in the mirror, you don't look white. But you got to do all those things to act white all the time. You got to learn perfect diction. You understand? In other words, you got to talk like white people. And you even have to learn how to walk like white people. When people talk about Michael Jackson, they say Michael Jackson did this terrible thing with children. And what I want to tell you that something is wrong with Michael Jackson, but they got the wrong disease. You want to look at child molestation, Michael Jackson is a victim of child molestation. When you see an African who is so messed up that he has internalized this whole concept of being white to succeed, that he mutilates himself to such an extent that he continues to mess up his face, that he looks like an old, sick white woman. This is somebody who is a victim of child molestation. Because you have to be like the oppressor, and so you're sick all the time. And you're angry with each other all the time. You're really angry with the white man, but you ain't gonna mess with him. Scared of him. You scared of him. You're scared to even be seen places with black people that white people don't want you to be seen with. You know, I ain't going there because if the white man, if my boss, if somebody hears about it, I'm gonna be in trouble. The police might know it, the white man might know it, my boss might know it. Ain't that a hell of a way to live? That's how the Jews were living too. And so they were always messing with each other. And so the Jews had what many people refer to as religion today. But it's not exactly religion. The reality is that every culture, every society has for itself an explanation of its place and destiny in the world. You won't find a society that cannot come up and has for itself. And this is an explanation that has come out of its own experiences as a people. Everybody does that. And the Jews had a way of life around which had emerged this philosophy. And the philosophy, of course, is tied up into now what you call the Bible. And the Jews had certain leaders who, ones who best interpreted and best understood and best expressed the notions that was in this philosophy that was found in the Bible. These were the teachers. They were called priests and things like that. Now, I'm not talking, when you talk about religion, you're talking about what white folk have taught you is something that you go to do every Sunday in church or in Bible study or something like that. I'm talking about a way of life. This is how the Jewish people, this is how all peoples emerged. They had a way of life. And philosophy grew out of this way of life and informed the people how they should act. For example, people would discover that eating the pig and stuff like that would kill you pretty soon. It will kill you sometimes, won't it? Because it has all these disease and tapeworms and all other kinds of things associated with it. So after the leaders of the society, the learned people in the society, begin to sum up that the thing will kill you, he will have a vision that will say, God said, don't eat anything with cloven feet. Won't it? Don't eat anything like that because it'll kill you. If I told you, you're going to eat it anyway because I like them pork chops, you understand? But God told you not to eat, so write that down, you understand? And so you see coming out of the experiences of the people this philosophy and some science and some mysticism because the reality is much of religion and from our society is organized around ignorance, what you don't know. If you don't believe it, I can tell you the main thing that persons who is very religious say to you when you say I'm not religious. They say, what you mean ain't no God? They won't give you evidence that there is. They can't say, well, if there ain't no God, then how the moon get there? And how the sun get there? And why it go round and round like it does? In other words, if you don't know the answer, it must be a God. So it's the religion organized around what? Ignorance. Yeah. The more you know, the more you move away from them. Yeah. Oh, yes. And so here you have like 2,000 years ago, was no satellites, was no Toyotas, was no cable television, was no telephone, was no indoor toilets, except maybe in Egypt. Yeah, that's right. Right? And 2,000 years, and the Roman kicking butt everywhere. Rome is doing it up. And the people who are oppressed by Rome want to find a way. And the Jews had this belief that someday there was going to come a leader a deliverer. And deliverer, what is a deliverer? They call it a Messiah. That's what Messiah means, a deliverer, someone who would deliver us. Because the Jews wanted to have their own government. They didn't want to be governed by the Romans. They wanted to have their own government. In those days, you didn't have governments that were comprised of Congress and Senate and Parliament and stuff like that. In those days, you had governments where there were kings. Isn't that right? And in such a place where there are kings, you call it what? A kingdom, right? And so the Jews wanted their own kingdom. And they believed that there was going to be somebody who would come and lead them to find their own kingdom. Not after you die, but right here on earth. Right here on earth. They wanted a kingdom. They wanted to get out from under the domination of the white people from Rome. But there were all kinds of organizations among the Jews, just like there are organizations among you. There was one organization that was called the Sadducees. And this was an old Uncle Tom organization comprised mostly of rich Jews. And they were religious, rich Jews, real rich Jews, not just, and so just like now, back then you could still be under foreign domination and get rich. And then there were the Pharisees. The Pharisees were also Uncle Tom's cellular group, except the Sadducees were nonviolent. They were, some people call it pacifism, but I call it masochism. Right? The Sadducees believed in a nonviolent approach to everything. And then you have the Pharisees. The Pharisees believe in a legalistic approach to everything. Just like that. The Pharisees was key. They were ticklers about the law. And both groups were Uncle Tom groups. But they weren't the only groups among the Jewish people while the Jews were suffering this oppression. And the Romans used the Sadducees and the Pharisees. And they had a neo-colonial institution called a Sanhedrin, through which the Uncle Tom Jews exercised the law. And then, though, there were groups like the Zealots. The Zealots were revolutionaries, violent revolutionaries. I'm not making this up. You can check out your history. You can even check your Bible history. John the Baptist was a zealot. And John was a bad boy. He was a guerrilla. You heard what I said? He was a guerrilla. He was a revolutionary. And how do I know he was a guerrilla? Because even back there, during those times, John acted strange, they would call him, sort of like Nat Turner. He did. Check up on Nat Turner and then read about John the Baptist and see if they don't sound alike. And John the Baptist, he had a great following because many people thought John the Baptist was the Messiah, was the one that was going to come to lead them to this kingdom right here on earth. And John, he was running around baptizing people and telling them to repent, change your ways. Brothers and sisters, change your ways. He was trying to get them to come out from under the Romans. And they said that he wore clothes made out of camel's hair. And they said his diet was grasshoppers and honey. This ain't somebody who hang out at the supermarket. You understand? This is somebody living off the land. This is a gorilla living off the land here. John the Baptist, check it out. John the Baptist, according to scripture, was also Jesus' cousin. In fact, he was born about 6 months earlier than Jesus. It's really interesting. An angel came and told John the Baptist's daddy, where's Nyabinga? What was his daddy's name? What was John the Baptist's daddy's name? Zachariah. Told Zachariah, said, look here. Say, your wife pregnant, Zach. Zach said, that ain't possible because I'm too old. You understand? I'm an old dude, you know. And the angel said, we gave her some holy Viagra. say she pregnant. She pregnant. And say, I want you to name him John. Say, I ain't gonna let you talk no more till after the baby is born and you name him John. And Zach couldn't talk either until the baby was born. Say, what the baby's name? And somebody said, well, the wife, what was her name? Was that Elizabeth? Yeah. Said, we're gonna name him John. And they said, well, hey, you ain't got no family members named John. Why you gonna name him John? And so they went to Zachariah and said, what we gonna name him? And Zach wrote down John. And after that, John could talk. Now that was Mary's cousin, Elizabeth. And 6 months later, 3 months later or so, Jesus was born. And so here you have John the Baptist, who's moving around, has created a huge following. People follow him. They think he's the Messiah. And John is in trouble. And he's getting in trouble because he's talking about Herod. Now, Herod was the super Uncle Tom Jew. Herod was called the king of the Jews because his whole family for generations had been appointed by the Romans to be over the rest of the Jews. Masses followed John. Except on one day, John's wife's daughter did a dance. It must have been some kind of dance. Whose wife was it? Herod's wife. I'm sorry, Herod's wife. What did I say, John? Yeah, John apparently wasn't hooked up. But Herod's wife did this dance, and his daughter, Herod's wife's daughter, did this dance, and John liked it so much, he said, just tell me, I just do anything that you want, because the dance was so great. And so Herod's wife said, tell him to give you John's head on a platter, because John talking about us, putting us in a dozen and what have you. And so Herod he didn't want to do it because he knew it was going to be a problem, political problem for it, if he did it. But he done made this promise in front of all these people, so they did. He busted John, went and had him busted, and then they cut his head off. But before John had his head cut off, John ran around baptizing everybody, and Jesus came to be baptizing. Y'all know the scriptures, don't you? Yeah. What happened when he did? When he went out and he said, John, baptize me, what did John say? You the man. John said, you the man. Remember that? Isn't that what John said? You are the one. So it makes you think that Jesus must have been a zealot too. Exactly. Doesn't it? Jesus must have been a zealot too. And I know that you've been taught that Jesus was a non-violent little wimpy, sissy little guy. And I know you also been told that Christianity is everybody's religion. It ain't true. Christianity was this response, this thing that you now call Christianity, because there was no such, Jesus wasn't a Christian. Right. Jesus was a Jew. Right. And what happened was the people who believed that Jesus was the one who was sent. And they thought first, among others, because there were a lot of people who claimed to be the Messiah during that period of time. And they thought a lot of people thought John was the Messiah. And then John said, no, this is the one right here. This is the Messiah. And so, and Jesus, and so the Jews again were looking for a Messiah. And Jews are still today. You understand what I'm saying? The Jews are still today waiting for a Messiah, waiting for a deliverer. It's just those that followed this person thought that he was the Christ, which means Messiah, deliverer. They thought he was the Christ. That's where the term Christian comes from. This was the first group of Jews who thought that they could find this way to get rid of the Romans. Check up on your history. Yes, sir. I say that Jesus and Christianity, he wasn't talking about you. He wasn't talking about your black self. He was talking about Jews. Can I prove it? Please. We go to Matthew in this book. Matthew 10:5. Because Jesus had a program. And he had an organization. And he pulled together these 12 key persons in his organization. They all had different kinds of skills and talents and what have you. And he sent them out as organizers. He sent them out. You should read it, because if you want to know how to organize, they tell you right here how to organize, who to see, and when you get there, what to do. And all of this kind of stuff is right here. They're organizers that he sent out into the world to organize Jews, and just Jews, only Jews. He says, Matthew again, 10:5. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles. You know what a Gentile is? A Gentile is somebody who ain't a Jew. Do not go among the Gentiles. Don't go among no niggers, no Mexicans. No, do not go among the Gentiles, right? Do not go among the Gentiles or enter any town of the Samaritans. Do you know who the Samaritans are? Samaritans were people who were mixed marriages, Jews and Gentiles. He said, don't mess with no Gentiles, don't mess with nobody if they ain't no Jew, and don't mess with none of them who done hooked up with them white people. You understand? That's what he said. It's in there, Matthew 10:5. And he said more than that. He said, go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. And as you go, preach this message, the kingdom of heaven is near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Do not take along any gold or silver or copper in your belts. Take no bag for the journey, or extra tunic or sandals or a staff. For the worker is worth his keep. In other words, don't worry about taking anything with you. You're an organizer. Go among the people will take care of you. That's what it says right here in this Bible. In this Bible. I'm going to show you something else too. We go like to Matthew 10:15. He says, but I want to go before that, because I'm going to show you that this guy was an organizer. And he's organizing under dangerous circumstance, because the Romans will bust you and do something terrible to you. This is Matthew 10:11. Whatever town or village you enter, search for some worthy person there and stay at his house until you leave. As you enter the home, give it your greeting. If the home is deserving, let your peace rest on it. If it is not, let your peace return to you. If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, shake the dust off your feet when you leave that home or town. Get out of there. They don't listen to you, just check out. Now he's concerned. He knows about the dangers there. If you go to Matthew 10:15, he says to let you know that he knows. He's talking about danger. This ain't no religious instructions. He says, I tell you the truth. It will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. You understand? He says, be on your guard. This is Matthew 10:17. Be on your guard against men. They will hand you over to the local councils and flog you in their synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. And to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. But the thing is, you understand, he's sending them out as organizers in a dangerous situation, because the Romans will bust you up. They'll put you in jail. They'll do terrible things to you. I know you don't believe me. He says, again, at 10:21, he said, brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. All men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. When you are persecuted, he says, in one place, flee to another. Flee to another. Get out of there. Split. Do the work. So, and then I know that a lot of people like to tell you that that Jesus was this little pacifist and who believed in nonviolence. Jesus was not a pacifist, y'all. If we look at Matthew 10:34, I'm reading here from the Life Application Study Bible, New International Version.
King James.
Yeah, you King James. He says again, 10:34. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth.
Hello.
I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. But a sword. He said, I'm strapped. Y'all understand? You have to be clear on that. Now, you have to be clear on that because you got to be looking and seeing who was most like Jesus. Jesus was not a snitch. You've got a situation here where we went to a church the other week, and there was a Negro there, had the whole police department there, and Reverend Murphy was talking about how good it was to lock up the black people and what have you. But Jesus was not a snitch. He did not work with the police. The snitches were the ones who turned Jesus into the police. Isn't that true? Wasn't the snitches who turned him into the police? First, there was an agent in his organization. There was an agent in his organization named Judas, wasn't there? Judas was an agent in the organization. And Judas went and told them, said, look here, I'll turn him over to you. Give me a little bit of money here. You understand? And I will turn him over to you. And then Jesus met him in the garden and ran up to him and kissed him on the cheek. Said, you'll know who it is because I'm going to kiss him. Is that in the scriptures? In his own organization, there was a Roman agent. That ain't nothing new. There's snitches in this organization. There's snitches all around. People who have lost themselves, don't even belong to their communities and their people anymore, don't even belong to themselves. They work for the white man. They come and sit up in your meetings, pretend to be your brothers and sisters, and they go and run back and tell the white man and turn you over to him every time. That's how Malcolm X died. That's how Martin Luther King died. You understand? They have to have somebody in your own group in order to be able to do it to you. They have to have somebody in your own community in order to be able to do it to you. So Jesus came to help deliver his people from Roman domination, to fight against Roman colonialism. And he pulled together an organization to try to do it. And he belonged to an organization that believed in struggle. And they were always trying to get Jesus, and snitches. And you had people, especially those who were always tied to the law. You can read them quoted in the newspaper in St. Petersburg all the time. These people were these ticklers for the law. You got to be for the law. Here you are from an oppressed community, and the oppressed community trying to fight back, and you hear this Negro who is speaking about the law, and whose law? Whose law? Not the law of the oppressed, but the law of the emperor. The law of the empire is what he's saying that you got to follow. And they were always working to try to trap Jesus. They weren't trying to send Jesus. This wasn't a religious question. They weren't trying to send Jesus to hell. They was trying to send him to jail. You'll go to Matthew 22:18. Or let's go to Matthew 22:16. And it starts off, and we go through 16 through Matthew 22nd. It says, then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They didn't have tape recorders. That's what they use on us now. They use tape recorders and what have you to back up the snitches. They sent their disciples to him with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, somebody got a burning spear? What is point number 4 in the burning spear? Quickly. That's free speech and political association. That's enough. Question. Wait a minute. Don't put it down. What is the point around taxes? Number three. That's point number. What does it say?
We want an end to all local, state, federal, and other taxation of black people by the U.S. government and any government.
Okay, now stop. Stop. Okay, so here we are, Matthew 22:15. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by men because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Caesar is the emperor. He's the Roman emperor. He's the one in charge. He's the one who's dominating. Is it right to pay taxes? They say. Why would they raise that question? Because the Romans were a foreign government that occupied them. Why would they have to pay taxes to the Romans? Why do they have to spend their $12 million of taxpayers' money to go downtown to Baywalk when Baywalk ain't even for the black people? So they're saying, do we pay taxes or not to Caesar? Because they want him to say the wrong thing so they can put him in jail. Why was this being important? This ain't no religious question. This ain't no religious question. This is a political question. This is a question that can get you put in jail. You understand? Oh, yes. But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, this is 22:18, you hypocrites. Why are you trying to trap me? He said. Why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius. And he asked them, whose portrait is this? And whose inscriptions? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and God what is God's. You understand? In other words, I ain't answering that question. you ain't sending me to jail, not off that. Oh, no. It's there. It's there. You just got to know how to read it. You got to know what was happening. You got to know the history of the circumstances that you were dealing with. Jesus is trying to deliver the Jews from Roman domination. And the Romans and all the zealots are trying to keep it from happening. I'm going to show you some more because I know you don't believe me. I'm telling you that he wasn't writing this for you. He was writing it for the Jews. And it's already been said here in Matthew who it was for. Say, don't go to the Gentiles and don't go to the Samaritans. Just go to the lost children of Israel. Jews.
Yeah.
Then you go to Matthew 26:55. Matthew 26:55, because when they busted Jesus, it was interesting. When they busted Jesus, what was that? 20 what? 26:55. When they arrested Jesus and they came and caught him in the garden and they busted him. So Jesus turned to him and he said, at that time, let me just go back. Let me just go up to, this is when Jesus is in the garden and Judas came up, kissed him and did all that other kind of stuff. And there was a whole crowd of people coming to arrest. They had swords and clubs to come bust Jesus. So he says to them, am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? This is what Jesus said. Am I leading a rebellion that you have come with swords and clubs to capture me? That's what he said. That's what he said. And then he says, every day I sat in the temple courts teaching and you did not arrest me. And nobody didn't arrest him when he was in the courts, right? You don't know why they didn't bust him? Because the power of the people, they were scared of the people, so they caught him when he was by himself in the garden. So now you're coming to bust me for a rebellion. For a rebellion. This is what you came for. Citing to riot. Citing to riot. Citing to riot, and to make sure that you understood that Jesus was quite clear on what he was about, Because when he was before Pontius Pilate, who was the Roman governor over the Jews, right? He was running stuff there. Pontius Pilate, the governor asked him, he said, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus' response was, "Yeah." He said, well, he didn't say it in the vernacular. He said, "Yes, it is as you say." In other words, you said it. You said it. I'm the one. I'm the kid. What yours say?
Which verse you looking at?
I'm looking at Matthew 27:11.
Oh, 27:11?
Yeah, 27:11. Yeah, he said, "I'm the one." That's me. Go ahead.
And Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, "Art thou the king of the Jews?" And Jesus said unto him, "Thou sayest." I'm going to 12.
No, that's good. He said, "Thou sayest," in there. And this one, he says, "Yes, it is as you say." Yeah. You said it. In other words, you said it. So, and, I'm saying this because you got all these Uncle Toms, among other things, who pretend, like they trying to be like Jesus. And Jesus was going in them joints, kicking over the tables, what have you, wasn't he? Said kicked over the money tables. Said, "You guys, it's a den of thieves." Kicked over the money table. You guys just making money in here. You got this program and that program, and most of y'all working with the Romans, working with the empire. Most of y'all get, getting money to tear down houses on 22nd Street and 18th Avenue and what have you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I want to just tell you this right here. I want to go to Luke now. Luke has some interesting stuff to say too. And you go to Luke, let me see what, 22, Luke 22, verses 35 through 38. And it was some interesting stuff here that he had to say. 35 through 8, because again, Jesus was not a pacifist. Jesus was not a somebody, he believed in turning the other cheek, but who was he talking to when he said turn the other cheek? He was talking to Jews about each other. He was saying, y'all got to stop this fighting each other. You got to stop messing over each other. You got to stop doing all of this stuff. He was talking to the Jews. He wasn't saying let the Romans wipe you out. He wasn't saying let your oppressors do this thing. He was talking to the Jews about what kind of relationship they should have among themselves. And at Luke 22, 35, 38, Jesus asked him, he's already told Peter, you're gonna double cross me, man. When before the rooster crow, you're gonna be denied me 3 times. And the truth is, when they busted Jesus, I told you they had an agent in his organization. When they busted Jesus, of course, one of Jesus' followers, they say it was Peter, he took out his sword and cut the guy's ear off, and Jesus stopped it and put the ear back on, right? And then all of them ran. They split and left Jesus by himself. Jesus was left there by himself. Everybody, the whole organization took off. Left Jesus there by himself to deal with this stuff. But anyway, Jesus was at this Last Supper. Jesus asked them, this is 22:35, Luke 22:35. Then Jesus asked them, when I sent you without purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack for anything? Nothing, they answered. 36, he said to them, but now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. This is when Jesus knows he's going to die. You understand? He said, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Oh, if you don't have a piece, sell your suit. You understand? Get a piece. Be naked if you want to, but get yourself a piece. That's it. Is that in the Bible you got there? Oh, yeah. Say, if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. You understand? And the disciple said, 38, the disciple said, see, Lord, here are 2 swords. That is enough, he replied. You understand? These 2? Yeah. So this is the Jesus that these Uncle Toms say they believe in. The ones who condemn the masses of the people who support the emperor, support the empire, but who work against the interests of their own oppressed brothers and sisters. And Jesus was clear on it. He was against them rich Jews. He said that it'd be easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it will be for a rich man to get into heaven. Why? Because if you are rich under colonial domination, then you cannot work for independence of the people because you get your wealth by being tied to white power. So you got to be free from white power to overturn white power. It's what Malcolm X was talking about when he talked about the house Negro and the field Negro. You see, the house Negro who live with the white man in the white man's house, if the people who are being enslaved in the field come and try to burn down the white man's house, well, you burning down the house Negro's house too. The house Negro's going to snitch on you. He's going to tell on you because he's got a stake in the existence of slavery. Same thing right here. Same thing right here. This is what Jesus was talking about. And I'm going to tell you one more thing. I'm going to Luke 23:13, because I want you to be clear on what this thing was about. Luke 23:13. Pilate called together the chief priests and rulers and the people and said to them, I'm going to read 13 through 18. Listen to this. And said to them, you brought me this man as one who was inciting the people to rebellion. Pilate is the one who has to make the decision of whether Jesus is going to die. He said, you brought me this man as one who was inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he has sent him back to us. See, Herod's scared because the real deal is that Jesus got this following, and what it could mean for Herod and Pilate don't want to mess with it either because of political reason. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him. With one voice, they cried out, away with this man. Release Barabbas to us. And then it says, Barabbas had been thrown into prison for an insurrection in the city and for murder. So rebellion and insurrection was going on everywhere. Now here's John the Baptist, the gorilla. Camel's coat made out of camel's hair, eating honey and grasshoppers. And a whole bunch of people followed him, but Jesus came later, and Jesus had a program. Jesus had a health care program. Didn't he have a health care program? He sent all of his disciples. He said, go heal the sick, didn't he? And then Jesus walked around healing and making people better, didn't he? He was making the poor and oppressed people like that. He had a health care program. He had an economic program, too. Listen to me, he was a socialist. How the hell do you think it's possible for somebody to feed 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish except through cooperative planning and cooperation? You can't do nothing by yourself, but you get everybody together, you find out you got more than what you think you got. Kicked over the tables in the temple and what have you. So Jesus was serious about struggle, serious about revolution. And he was bringing a message of deliverance to the Jews, to get the Jews out from under Roman domination. And for many, many years, the things that made Christianity spread like wildfire is because the fact is that Rome dominated so much of the world. And every place people around the world heard about this group of people who was rising up against the Roman Empire. They said, I want to be a piece of that. And so they adopted the philosophy to fight against Rome. And so in the beginning, Christianity was this movement against Roman Empire, against domination, and all the people who were dominated by Rome took it up. And even some Romans who hated what their empire was doing to other people became Christians as well. And the thing got so serious that Rome, for more than 100, 200 years after Jesus was there, they were still fighting these people who were trying to do insurrection all over the Roman Empire. Got so serious, Rome was feeding them to the lions. Oh yeah, they were throwing them in there with the lions, feeding them to the lions, the Christians were. And then they got hip. And in 313 AD, 313 years after they had executed Jesus, you know what? They did Jesus just like they did Terry Rockmore. You should read about it. They got their sticks and beat him all up. You know, they beat him up. The police, they were brutal with Jesus. They stuck a crown on his head that said, the King of the Jews. They said, yeah, you the king of the Jews, right? You know what they were saying to you when they was taking you out? Yeah, you bad now. Isn't that what the police were saying to you? That's what they were saying to Jesus. Yeah. You're the king of the Jews, you bad. Because Jesus was fighting to get a government for the Jews. Yeah. Because the Jews wanted their own government because they were intelligent. And so they had this emperor by now, 313. The emperor is no longer Caesar, but it's a man named Constantine. You've heard of Constantinople? Named after Constantine. Constantine said, hell, we don't have to keep killing them. He says, I'll join them. So Constantine says, I'm going to be a Christian. So he joined the Christians. But he wasn't just a Christian, he became the top Christian. Now, much of what I'm reading to you here in this is what Constantine pulled together. This is the emperor. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is the emperor who the Jews have been fighting against. Now the emperor becomes the chief Christian. He's the head Christian. He's over all the other Christians. The Roman church, the Roman Catholic Church, hear what I'm saying, is structured off of the Roman Empire. It has the same structure that the Roman Empire had. So now you got a new head of the church. Not only do you have a new head of the church, but you got a head of the church going to say what Jesus stood for. And this is the guy who Jesus and his crew was fighting against. So even as I read through this, you can see some of Jesus' stuff got through. But the emperor made sure that whatever he didn't want in there didn't get in there. Think I made it up? You can check it out. Check your history. Yeah. I know Reverend Chickenbone don't teach this. Check your history. Check your history. Don't have to listen to me. And you can be upset if you want to, but I didn't do it to you. I'm quoting the scripture here, and I'm telling you what happened. And so what you find is that Constantine now becomes head of the church. So it used to be when Jesus and the other Christians were going out, they were fomenting insurrection against Roman domination. Now the emperor is in charge of Christianity, and he sends out Christians to do what? Sends out Christians to suppress the oppressed peoples of the world. So everywhere you look in the world where people are oppressed, all over Latin America, all over the world, you see the Christians have come now from Rome. You see Catholicism in particular, not just Catholicism, because in particular, all over oppressed countries around the world. Because now it's no longer, the Christianity is no longer the religion of the oppressed, it's the religion of the oppressor. Yeah. It's the religion of the oppressor. Africans in this country were attracted to Christianity because it was the religion of the oppressed. That's why they said, used to sing that song, you know, go down, Moses, way down to Egypt land, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. Now you got niggas who go to Pharaoh to lock his people up. That's what was happening at Murphy's church, ain't it? Say, lock my people up. So they breaking the emperor's laws. And as long as we were out there by ourselves, having to fight against white power by ourselves, then Christianity was something that we saw as the way forward. In fact, when I was a child, when a baby boy was born, the old women used to go and look at the boy and say, is this the one? Because through the whole Christian tradition of sending a deliverer, Africans were looking for somebody to deliver us from this hell. And just like Pharaoh, just like the emperor, just like Constantine, integrated into Christianity, the Negroes here integrated into white power. And when they integrated into white power, the Christianity in our community turned into something else. Had now joined the emperor. As at the moment we joined the emperor, then the Christianity was no longer something that was about fighting against oppression. Christianity was something that was used to keep us oppressed.
Makes sense.
Oh yes. I'm talking about this today, and I'm talking about it because if you look around us, what we are dealing with in terms of the world of ideas, this contest of ideas. It's not a question of capitalism as such, the ideas of capitalism or the ideas of Marxism or the ideas of some other kind of philosophy. The philosophy that we are in contention with is that philosophy that they call Christianity that these Negroes are using against our community, and you need to understand it so that you can go up and you can even tell Reverend Chickenbone that you know the truth. You know who Jesus was. You say, if Jesus was a revolutionary, Reverend Chickenbone, how the hell are you such an Uncle Tom? We got the same program Jesus had. We got a wellness center to heal sick. We got a gym where you can go in and get fitness. Yeah, don't we? We fight against the oppressors. Every time you look up at us, we're fighting against the oppressor. And just like Jesus, we want our own government. Want our own government. Want our own government. And ours is also a message of deliverance. And it was brought to us by Garvey and others who told us that if you want your freedom, then you strike out, because Africa is the homeland. Africa is freedom. This is how you find your freedom. You got to have your own philosophy. You can't use somebody else's philosophy to win your freedom. Why you think, if Christianity was what it was when Jesus was around, why ain't they trying to put Murphy on a cross? They ain't trying to put Murphy on a cross. They trying to put Tundu on a cross. They trying to put the people who stand up for freedom on a cross. In fact, it's the Murphys and the rest of them who act like Pharisees and Sadducees, always trying to trap you and deliver you up to the white man and to the emperor. Is that right? Is that right? We are the ones who carry the legacy of Jesus, not these old handkerchief-head, chicken-eating preachers who deliver the people up into servitude and say we ought to act like it. I quoted you scriptures here. You can go and look for yourself. You don't have to believe me. Reverend Chickenbone never told you what it was all about, but I'll tell you, sometimes it's because the nigga didn't know. We're in a war, and key to this war is a war of ideas. The war of ideas. You have to believe in your freedom in order to win it. If you don't want freedom, you can't have it. If you don't strike out for freedom, you can't have it. If you don't believe that you're supposed to be free, you never will be free. There you are. Jesus believed in freedom. John the Baptist believed in freedom. John was an organizer, and Jesus was an organizer too. And Jesus was able to win a whole bunch of people to him because he was able to heal people. He brought a program to the people. And he brought people an understanding of how they had to love each other and get along with each other. And don't be a sellout. That's what Jesus, and he told you. He said, somebody said, but Jesus, I want to go with you, but you know, there's been a death in the family. He said, let the dead bury the dead, because the most important thing you can do right now is to make this revolution. Isn't that what he said? He said, let the dead bury the dead. We got work to do because the Romans are trying to deal with us. There was no excuse. He wouldn't accept any excuse, and he turned around a whole bunch of folks. Matthew was a tax collector, and the tax collectors was despised because they knew the ones who were taking taxes was giving them to the Romans. The Romans in Rome living high off the hog, and the Jews in Israel living like pigs, and what have you. So the one who was collecting the taxes for the white man, he was despised. And he turned Matthew out. And of course, you had old Judas. Judas himself was a money keeper. Judas kept the treasury for the group. Judas kept the treasury for the organization. Some people suggest that the reason Judas flipped out because all of them thought that all of these people who were running around, they were looking for a kingdom, they thought that since they was the main organizers and what have you, they was going to be on top, and they was going to have a kingdom like the Sadducees and all this other kind of structure. But Jesus was trying to raise up the poor. He said, this is the key right here, the poor people. And so there was this incident where Jesus was someplace and this woman came and washed his hair in perfume. They say the perfume was so expensive it was worth a year's salary. And Judas freaked out. He said, woman, why are you using all that perfume like that? You understand, we can use that perfume, we can sell that and give the money to the poor or something. And Jesus said, it's cool. Let the woman do this. And some people said that was the thing that freaked Judas out. I said, hell, this joker here ain't trying to get nothing where we going to have a piece of action. You understand? And I'm going to get me some money right now from the Romans. I suspect Judas was probably an agent. Because Rome, you know, this whole thing about having agents infiltrating the organization, it goes back ever since there's been empire. There's been a snitch who worked for the empire. So I wanted to talk to you about that. And I think it's a decent question for you to be able to ask your preacher. Ask him about the revolutionary Jesus. And ask him how they can be so different. And if you look around, what you will see is that your preachers act more like Pharisees and Sadducees than they do like Jesus did. And what I'm telling you this, brothers and sisters, that our deliverance is going to come with our own philosophy. And our own philosophy is that which is going to liberate Africa and give it back to African people scattered around the world. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Uhuru, I had to get my church fan out here because it was hot. Uhuru, wow. I really want to salute the chairman's presentation. And this profound sermon, as was stated in the comment section, this was unlike anything you've ever heard in a church before. So I just want to really salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And of course, we have our own philosophy. It's African internationalism, which the chairman has spent his entire life dedicated to developing, over more than 50 years. So I just want to, again, really salute the chairman. And we're about to have the chairman on, as well as President Kalambayi and Andenet of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. We're going to have them up with us shortly. But before we do that, I want to take a pause right here because I want to make sure this study is being shared widely. So we are pausing for a share break. So for these next few minutes, while I go through the announcement section And as our esteemed panelists are getting prepared to speak around this presentation, I need you, our live viewers, to share this video. Like this video, tag a friend, and share. These colonial capitalists work hard to ensure we cannot utilize these platforms in our own interests. And right now, what's in the interest of Africans everywhere is to hear this discussion. So the African People's Socialist Party is the only place where you can even get an analysis like this. So I want to see those shares go up. Comment in the chat once you've shared so that I know it's being done, and also influence everybody else who's watching to share with you. So share, comment, shared. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, make sure you're liking these videos and tagging people in the comments. So we need to get to at least 500 shares by the end of the announcement. So drive that share up, and we're going to take it to announcements. So I'm expecting to see a lot of shares happening while I do this. So all right, so come to the Black Mothers March on the White House Sunday, May 8th in Washington, D.C., deepening the resistance to the terror of child protection services and calling for Black community control of child protection. The event is organized by a coalition of Black-led organizations, including the Uhuru movement's own African National Women's Organization, that have been involved in the struggle to rescue our children from the custody of the state. For more information and to register, visit blackmothersmarch.com. Mark your calendars for African Liberation Day 2022, taking place May 28th and 29th, featuring festivals and conferences in cities across the world. This year's African Liberation Day events will recognize the founding of the African People's Socialist Party on African Liberation Day in 1972. It has been relentless 50 years of leadership toward African redemption. So learn more about your region's events at alduhuru.org. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Burning Spear TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study, and support the Omali Taught Me show by donating now at paypal.me/Omali Taught Me. And we got one more? Yes. And to learn about all of our other events throughout the Uhuru movement, visit theburningspear.com/events. Also, don't forget to send us your events to our calendar announcement so we can add that to our overall calendar as well. So in our final announcement, you can take the slide down. I just want to call on people to join the African People's Socialist Party. I really want to stress and urge that in this period. And when you hear that mobilizing presentation, which was made, looks like between 2003, 2004, when you hear this presentation, you can understand why the philosophy of African internationalism has been so instrumental in summing up the overall conditions of African people and explaining the fundamental contradiction throughout the world, explaining the global parasitic economic system of colonial capitalism, having defined that, the chairman's relentless leadership over the last 50 years, helping us to define these critical questions. So now we have an explanation for why we are in the situation that we're in, but we also have the blueprint that paints the way towards our future. And as the chairman said, we have to believe that we deserve to be free. We have to desire freedom. Otherwise, we can't achieve it. So in order to act on our desires for freedom, we have to organize for freedom. We have to organize for African revolution, which means we have to join a revolutionary party. And I'm here to tell you that the revolutionary party, it has been delivered in the form of the African People's Socialist Party. So you need to join at APSP. Uhuru.org. No matter where it is you're located in the world, you can be a part of the African revolution, the African liberation struggle, so we can defeat this social system once and for all. So that's APSP-Uhuru.org. Don't let another day go by where you're not a member of the African People's Socialist Party. So that'll wrap up our announcements. I hope you took that opportunity to share, get this discussion out there into the world. But right now, we are going to go ahead and bring on our panelists, the leader of the worldwide African Revolution, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement President, Kalambayi Andenet. So Uhuru Chairman and President Kalambayi, welcome to our program today. And we just want to kick it off by asking you first to just speak to this incredible presentation, its impact, that's been felt, all around the world. So Uhuru, comrades, thank you for joining us and wanting to begin this discussion. Let me get Chairman's video on. There we go. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Comrade Director Kile.
And it's been something like 19 years since that presentation was made in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I think it's great because we're not a religious organization. In fact, we're a philosophical materialist. We're African internationalist. But we recognize the significance of philosophy. And that's what we were looking at in that presentation. And when you look at that, what we are referencing is a whole body of works that had been done by people who we call Jews today, who experienced themselves and defined what they were experiencing as living under scattered, under domination. And we're talking about a time where Rome dominated the world and made no bones about it. And most of what was known by people living in that area of the world at the time, which is most of it can be characterized or would be characterized as Northern Africa, if it were not for that ditch, that hole that called the Suez Canal that was created there in order to facilitate the theft of wealth, so they wouldn't have to run all the way around the tip of Africa to get the oil and other stuff they were stealing there. And that's the thing that made it possible for them to say that Africa is a continent on the one hand, and then Europe is another continent, which is extraordinary. Just if you look at Europe itself, how it could even be characterized as a continent, even if they had not dug that ditch there. But so that would have been characterized as Northern Africa. And you had people who believed in stuff and who experienced that they were being oppressed. And they had a collection of forces who they thought represent the highest expression of their civilization, of their freedom. You know, they had names and of people, and people wanted to be like David, and people wanted to be like Solomon. And because to the extent then they were upholding the significance of the collective people. And of course, with the attack on Africa and African people, we've lost connection with our own leaders who should be emulated. I mean, who should be emulated more than Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Nkrumah, Sankara, and all those other people? But we don't look to them as examples of what our leaders should stand up for. Isn't that extraordinary? I mean, instead of looking up to them for what our leaders should stand for, we look up to what Constantine, the Roman emperor, defined as what Christianity, which was resistance against colonialism as it emerged in real history. So it's really important to have this discussion and to have us having matured to a point that we can discuss this question of philosophy and its origin and what it represents. And Africans have to have a philosophy. We have to have an explanation of the world and our place and destiny in this world. We call that African internationalism. And that's why we can talk about people like Garvey and other extraordinary forces who've been a part of our history that represents the dignity and genius of the masses of African people, that inspire us, that make us hate and resist the whole notion of being enslaved. Those we who brought human life and civilization to the planet Earth to be reduced to the stature by barbarians, more or less, who only recently entered history. I mean, talking about an African history that was so splendid, building pyramids and sphinx and extraordinary civilization before what we now call the white man, before they mastered fire. But our history now relies on this exposition based on what Constantine was able to do when he arrested that part of history, so that and transform what would have been the philosophy of the oppressed into something that served the oppressor. 50 years ago next month will be the anniversary of the African People's Socialist Party. I mean, we came into existence 50 years ago, May of 1972. And this is where you begin to see the greatest exposition of a worldview that represented the interests of African people and our need to be free and is just as significant and should be just as significant to the world as this thing that we recognize as Christianity is, and just as significant to our people as what was characterized as Jewish history. And there's a lot that can be said about that I won't try to go into today, because the Jews of that moment would have been part of Northern Africa, and would not have been a part of this thing, these white people who left Europe and who now dominate that part of the world. So this is in a good time, because we talk about Easter, which has a relationship to Christianity, but also the springtime, which is period of rebirth. And I like that whole notion of rebirth. And I think that everybody who's come into political life of any significance will have experienced this rebirth that Christianity, that Easter is symbolic of, the rebirth and of our consciousness of our revolutionary tradition, etc. I just wanted to say that when we look at Constantine, who is the one who 300 and some odd years after Yeshua was murdered, the person who was named Jesus, who then characterized as Jesus. If you look at Constantine and how they could not quell this resistance to colonialism, to Roman colonialism. And so Constantine, the Roman emperor, finally decided that he would become the Christian himself and lead this resistance. So what used to be this resistance to tyranny, to colonialism, and they could not put the flame out, because there's the passion of human beings for freedom is deep and profound. And it's not something that just goes away easily. You have to have a process where you crucify people and bury them and bear on crosses upside down and just do horrible things to them. This is part of what's necessary to keep colonized people under foreign domination, which is the definition of colonialism, which is the definition of our relationship to white power, white people, and all of this is foreign power. As we go back all the way and we see how the Romans had instituted what we might characterize as neocolonialism with Jews who were over the oppression of us, and you got an elected alderman where you're located, or a city council person where you're located, and perhaps even a former president who is the king of the Black people, or was the king of the Black people, serving the emperor, the empire, the colonizer, as opposed to serving ourselves. I think these are some of the analogies that we can make to the history that we just talked about. And we had to go there with that discussion because so many people of our people have been brought in under this umbrella of philosophical idealism that people speak of as Christianity, and trapped in this church. And it's really some irony to be found in the fact that these instruments of oppression in every neighborhood, there are more churches and liquor stores in African communities than you would ever find. Certainly that is true in North America. And I don't know the extent of how true it is in other places. But that's where you find this whole array of churches and other drug peddlers. So Africans, inundated constantly there, and we have to go get our people. And we have to help our people to understand what it is that's trapping us. And then there are these little fiefdoms, these little people who become the head of the churches and things like that. They're like little governments of their own that represent white power. And they have to represent white power because the white man will not allow them to get their tax write-offs, will not allow them to get the little money they get to open up their little, what do you call it when your child care centers and parking lots paved and all the other kinds of things that come with the turf. And it's totally separate in most instances from the freedom of our people, from getting rid of colonialism. It's just finding some way to live within the colonial situation. And I think about how Constantine, the emperor, took over this movement of people fighting against colonialism that came to be known as Christianity and became the leader of this movement, became the head of this movement, the head of this church. And I can't but recognize how every year, at least twice a year, you have African people who, you have governments, local governments throughout the United States, and perhaps in some other places, but certainly throughout the United States, have declared how they've taken over Martin Luther King's memory and image and what he stood for. They can give a stamp for Malcolm X. They give you can now get drunk every January on the birth of Martin Luther King, and the governors and people who represent our oppression will come out and sing what they define as his as praises, etc. Of course, it's not. I mean, they've taken over the leadership of our people because that's what colonialism is. And so we don't have the ability to define, or we do have it. That's what the struggle is, to take that ability. That's what Jesus was about. Yeshua is about saying, this is what we are struggling for. And in all of these forces that were arrayed against him were arrayed against the liberation of the people who we call Jews right now. So I want to say that one reason and that we are here now is because this is a discussion that we are trying to have that's for our people and essentially for the African working class. This is not for academics and people who just want to have these abstract discussions, et cetera, that we see from time to time. But our people, we know today, there's little traffic in our communities because people are in churches right now. And people just tied up in this place, and we have to be able to speak to our people. This is what it's for. It's not for some discussion that shows how clever we are. And as academics or something like that, but to be able to speak to our people and to be able to even make a contest with those forces who call themselves preachers and things like that, who try to keep our people away from struggle, and to make a contest with those who even come up with things in addition to celebrating the government definition who Martin Luther King was or who Malcolm X was, et cetera, and various iterations of that. So we're saying, be like Yeshua, be like Jesus, fight against colonialism, destroy colonialism, kick over the tables and the money lenders that's in these temples and institutions that people have created as representative of themselves and their own significance, and give all power to the people. So that's an observation I would make. And like I said, this was 19 years ago when that presentation was made. And it's interesting to look at it right now. And so I turn it back over to you, Director, and Comrade Kalambayi. It's really good to see President Kalambayi, who has been an evangelist in the past and continues to be an evangelist now, but working for African nationalism. Yeah. Uhuru. So Comrade Kalambayi is just further evidence that Constantine failed. Ultimately, this whole thing of bringing the protest, the resistance under the leadership of the empire. And so, Uhuru,
Chairman. I just first want to really salute this political education and all the political educations, but I really salute this particular political education and really unite with your overview. And to say, I first want to say how important theory is. Without theory, our people are led to believe all kinds of things in the interest of their self, feeling like this is, your theory. And so when, like Chairman, you said August 9th, when I met you, I was actually very involved, was actually ordained and was over the youth department at my church. So I was the youth pastor, and I had been ordained. I had been called to the ministry at 16. And then, in Christianity, you play double dutch. So, of course, I had was in and out of the church. And then at 18, I had got ordained and called to the ministry, reaccepted my calling, I guess you could say. So like throughout my life, you know, Christianity was a thick part of it. And it, you know, when you know more about the 66 books of the Bible and you are fed to understand the Bible in a particular way, it don't serve you. And so the minute I came in contact with the theory of African internationalism, it changed my life. It made me evaluate like what it meant to be a Christian, because these questions was always there. Like if I be honest, they were always there. I had questions about a lot of different things or understanding. But this particular study that we did, like the first thing I had wrote down is I love when you talked about in the beginning, when you said they let you have locks because they know that your brain is relaxed. You know what I'm saying? You're so we seen like this whole notion of neo-colonial puppets looking very militant. You know what I'm saying? We see militant neo-colonial puppets. And I just really thought like, you know, in how relevant that is right now. You know, how you break that down and like using scripture and using the Bible in their way to show what that looked like. So your pastor, because now we have these urban churches that allow you to not be Christians like what my grandma and them was, you know, like where you can't wear earrings and, you know, pastors are looking, you know, they good at basketball, they could dance now, you know, it looks different, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, I thought about when I first came to the work and I started getting a deeper understanding of what it meant, what neo-colonial actually meant, like to see white power in Black face, like to identify that's what it is, to see that theory speaking through Black people. And it made me think of Ferguson, and it made me think of like Jesus when he was brought before the people, and how they would have you to believe in on today. A lot of people at church, and this is the sermon that is going to be taught, you know what I'm saying, to bring you to tears of and why our people unite with it, and how it's used in churches throughout, and it's never broke down like what we just watched, and it keep you relaxed and just waiting for somebody to come and save you. But you know, the people that was there is just like the people that be in the room, Chairman, at the meetings that I go to with the super voters, and they say that these are the masses, you know what I'm saying, that, you know, like, because the people that Jesus was healing didn't have a way to that meeting. They not in the room, you know, because they are catching hell constantly all day long. They too busy working, so they don't have time to go to the town hall meetings. But the people that they organize to be at the town hall meetings, and, you know, the propaganda that they put out to say like he's mocking you, you know, and all these different things is why the masses of the people said crucify. You know what I'm saying? So like, but that's never, I didn't even understand it until I was watching and, you know, and have a theory to be able to say that I can know everything, anything that I want to know. I won't limit myself. I know that I can know if I put forth the science and put forth the time and energy into knowing anything. It's nothing that I can't know. But in Christianity, you are taught the opposite. You know what I'm saying? You taught to go the opposite way. And I really appreciate how you took the time out to really expose that the biblical Jesus of whatever, you know, like this man and what he represented, this is not what the church is being. You know what I'm saying? I just really, really appreciate that. And I wrote down, I wanted to say these three things that, because when I became a revolutionary, this is a way of life. And that was one thing that I got from the church, because I had moved away from, you know, just having an emotional time at church. And I was really like trying to practice study. So I had Bible study at my house. I really wasn't big on just trying to go to church on Sunday, because it's true, you know, like church teaches that's what religion is, but it's really about life on life. And that's what Jesus was about. And so, you know, when I came into the work, one thing that I had seen, like the evidence of what I was trying to be that I couldn't get in the church. And that's the whole discipleship, you know what I'm saying? Life on life, living amongst the people. You know, this is everything that attracted me to the life of Jesus, is that he lived amongst the people. It was nothing, it was no gutter, it was no people that he wouldn't go and be amongst. You know what I'm saying? You know, like even the first person that he ever had told to go spread the gospel was a woman. You know, but but women can't even go in the pulpit at church. But they can't even explain it, you know. And I used to always preach about this woman, you know what I'm saying, and how he met her at the water. And it's nowhere else in scripture where you can find that Jesus had ordained or told, you know, he told her, like, go and tell the people this good news that I tell of you, you know what I'm saying? Like he told her, he said, because, you know, you the people, you know, he basically told her that, you know, you the people, they know your lifestyle, they know who you've been sleeping with, you got 10 husbands and all these different things. Now I'm applauding you to go back and give the good word. And, you know, like, you know, this is the historical Jesus. And even before in the Old Testament, which we know is the talkings of the coming of Jesus in the Old Testament. So even in the Old Testament, we see the people of Jesus, his ancestors, Moses. We see Moses, you know, getting fed up one day and saying, you know what, I can't take it no more, and murdering, you know, the oppressor, you know what I'm saying, which was what we would call the police, you know what I'm saying? And he knew that the measures of his crimes was death. And so Moses had to escape and leave his wife, leave his kids, leave his people, where they was being captured, and go to the woods, you know, and he prepared himself to go back to lead his people, but some of his people couldn't come because they wanted to take everything with them, and they kept looking back at, you know, like we see Harriet Tubman, you know what I'm saying? You know, we see Harriet Tubman freeing Africans, you know what I'm saying? And then she got to carry a gun with her because it became dangerous to even try to free the people to get them somewhere that they had never seen. I had wrote down, I'm gonna shut up. I had so many thoughts, Chairman, but Matthew's 10:5 talks about how Jesus, he describes the sellouts. He said that they are in the extravagant churches, saying these extravagant prayers, you know what I'm saying? This is not who I am. He's saying, go do the work with the people. Go in the streets and feed the people, go heal the people. Don't be like these hypocrites that hide in the synagogues, you know, saying these extravagant prayers, and they give these money to, you know, Caesar, to the whatever, to boast, you know what I'm saying? And they not trying to help the homeless and feed the people, and that's the good work. And, you know, and then in Matthew 7:14, you know, Jesus says, who should not, Luke 14 and 30, Luke 14 and 33, he says, this is real radical. He said, who should not ever hate their sister, hate their brother, hate their father? I say unto you, if you don't hate even yourself, you could not be my disciple. What is he talking about? He's saying that the way that we gonna get to the promised land, which is right here on earth, our own kingdom, where we have liberation, where we free, where our tax money go to us and not we used against us. We paying taxes for them to beat us down and take our stuff and treat us wrong, taking the best of our fruits and labor and things like that, our promised land. He said, if you don't hate even that in your daddy, your brother, your son, then you can't follow me, because the way you have to get to where I'm trying to go, you have to be willing to see that it can't come. You have to hate colonialism. That's basically what he was saying. He was saying, you got to hate it. You can't take it with you. You know what I'm saying? You can't, your aspirations, even in your own brain, you have to be willing to go to war with those things to get to where we have to go, where we are free. And so, like, you know, I just really appreciate the theory. I appreciate, you know, coming to organization to really help me be like Joshua, you know what I'm saying? Really be an evangelist that really see that it's no way, even if you are, you know, I tell Christians all the time, because I don't confess to be a Christian, and I'm okay with saying that, you know, yeah. So I'm not stuck there. But for people and family members, I always tell my mom, well, God is perfect. And if God is perfect, then he can't come in contact with this filthy genocide system. So what are you going to do? Because he told you to be ye righteous. You know what I'm saying? So being righteous, you know what I'm saying, might be like Paul. You know what I'm saying? Paul was locked up. You know what I'm saying? Once he went from Saul to Paul. And, you know, the people that he was once running with and persecuting the Christians had locked him up. He became a real enemy of the state. And the people, you know, broke him out of jail because that was the righteous thing to do. So, you know, I tell Christians that all the time, like, hey, if you really believe in the historical Jesus, then that is a call to action. You know what I'm saying? That is a call to be just like him. But I just really, really appreciate this study. I hope I didn't overtalk, Chairman, but those are the things I had wrote down that this was, it's just so important that we have this conversation. And it's so important as I am the president of a mass organization, and we have to be able to, you know, take this theory and take it into baby food and be able to hear and listen to the people and be able to bring them to a place of consciousness to be able to have that sword that they need to be able to, you know, confront their Uncle Tom pastor, Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Chairman, Uhuru, President Kalambayi, and I just really want to appreciate this discussion, want to unite with what's being stated, and just to say that the audience, those who are tuning in with us on Facebook and YouTube, have just really saluted this profound discussion. Some of the praises that we saw on the video itself, we're seeing today in this discussion. So we have just a few moments left. We haven't had any questions yet, but if you do have a question and you want that answered, make sure to go ahead and type that right now into the chat section, wherever you're watching. If you're on YouTube, Zoom, or Facebook, type your question into the chat section. We'll try to get it in. But I don't know if our panelist, Chairman Kalambayi, if, you know, either Chairman, you had something to state about what Kalambayi just presented, or Kalambayi, even if you have questions for the Chairman, you know, at this moment, while we look for questions from our audience.
Uhuru, I did just want to say that it is natural and normal that people, societies, develop an explanation again of their place and destiny in the world. Every society has to do that. And other peoples have done that, and Africans have done that in different times. And even some of what is characterized as Jewish history that you will find in the books that comprise what's characterized as the Bible. Actually, sometimes their stories borrowed from other societies and what have you to explain the place where groups of people have found themselves at different moments in history. You know, like even under the period of captivity, quote unquote, in Babylon, and how much of what we've come to understand about the beginning of life on earth, et cetera, stuff that was borrowed from stories from Babylon, from the Babylonians, you know, people having to do that. And I'm saying that there is a history, a genuine, extraordinarily important history of our existence. And African internationalism doesn't try to function as some kind of group of academics and historians that can go back for the beginning of time to explain this and that. But what we can do, in the same way it was necessary for people to do during the time of Roman domination of the world, what we can do and have done is to provide an explanation of the world as it has evolved from that period of the capture of Africa and African people and the process that gave rise to this global social system that exists today, and how it is something that we characterize as a colonial mode of production, where most of activity that happens in the world today connected together today as a consequence of the assault on Africa and African colonial slavery. That's what it is. And it puts Africa in the center of every discussion that you can have, African people. But what happens is that we're not in the center at the moment. We lose connection with where we've come from. And so in the part of developing this process, so we're not in the center if we're Haitians. We're not in the center of the world if we're Black Americans or New Africans or whatever other kind of characterizations that might be given, or if we're hyphenated human beings like Afro-Brazilians, Afro-Germans and things like that, or Afro-Americans. We got to be those things as a part of the process of the development of this whole world social system. And those who define us are the ones who control this system. And the primary relationship that we have as colonized people is our exploitation. And it's a natural exploitation as long as we exist within a colonial mode of production. A colonial mode of production presupposes a parasitic relationship between the masses of people and a foreign and alien power that sucks all of our resources for its own benefit. And the thing is that it convinces us that we are a part of that which exploits us. And that's what the hyphen is so important to be an African American now. It used to be just niggas and coons and jungle bunnies and things like that. But at the point, the struggle becomes so significant that you have to be recognized as someone who actually exists, which coons and jungle bunnies and porch monkeys didn't allow us to be, or Kafirs in South Africa. The moment the struggle gets to a place where our existence has to be acknowledged in some ways or another, then we become hyphenated human beings. We become human beings who owe our identity to a relationship to the colonizer. And that's what we're trapped with. And even the most significant forward-thinking European in the world, like Karl Marx, was able to define the existence of this current world global system has gone through a process of primitive accumulation of capital that started the whole thing up. But primitive accumulation of capital was the enslavement of African people. He said it himself, said it was turning Africa to a warren for the commercial hunting of Black skins. Mm-hmm. The primitive accumulation of capital was what happened to the indigenous people here in the Americas. It was what Europe did all over Asia, et cetera. So we lose our own identity and significance, and we get defined as a part of the oppressor itself. That's what Christianity sort of did too. Once the Constantine was able to take control of the definition of the resistance by getting in front of it and then organizing the resistance to colonialism under his leadership in this instance, using that as an analogy. And so that's what's happened with us too. And African internationalism allows us to recapture our own brains, our own identity, our own significance as human beings. And so the world as we know it, everything defined in the world as we know it, is one that came into existence through colonialism. The attack on Africa is what gave birth to the white man. There was no such thing as the white man before the attack on Africa. Nations, as we understand it today, came into existence through colonial capitalism, the attack on Africa, the dispersal of African people around the world. This is how Europe got to be Europe. There was no such thing as Europe before then. In fact, it was just groups of white people who defined themselves in relationship primarily to each other. So you had Celts and Normans and Visigoths and all of these people who were in struggle with each other. They were not one people. What made them one people was when they began to attack Africa, and then they began to get rich off of that. And this is what united them, gave them a common consciousness, a sense of sameness. This is where you see the foundation, the creation of the white man and nations and things like that. And what's happened to us is that we have been put in this place where we define ourselves now in relationship primarily to each other. So as opposed to primarily in relationship to our oppressor. So that's how we can find ourselves fighting in our neighborhoods, one against the other, etc. That's why you can find Black people doing, separate Bahamians versus Haitians and Jamaicans and all this other stuff, because we lost sight of the big picture. Now we just define ourselves in relationship to each other. African internationalism gives us a bigger vision of the world. And now we define ourselves in relationship to our oppressor. And we can recognize how this whole thing came into existence. And this sense of sameness is what's sweeping the world today. And of course, this Ukraine-Russian thing is helping to escalate that process, because even as these white colonial powers that's responsible for the misery and oppression that Black people and oppressed people all around the world exist now, they collectivize their struggle to attack Russia and define Russia as this horrible entity that's responsible for all kinds of oppression. At the same time, they are killing Black people all around the world. They're killing the people in Yemen. They're killing people in Afghanistan. They're killing Black people in North St. Louis and in Brooklyn, New York, and all these other places. And so this is giving food to thought and opens the door for further exposition on African internationalism. And that was the battle, in many ways analogous to ours, that Yeshua, this individual who purports to have existed 2,000 years ago, was involved in. That's what we have to recognize ourselves and take and capture our own brains, recapture our own brains, our sense of consciousness, and recognize that if I was going to believe in somebody, it'd be Marcus Garvey. It would be Dedan Kimathi from Kenya. It would be Strike at Night and Spare No One, Nat Turner. It would be these revolutionaries, and certainly the comrades from Dessalines and all these other forces around the world. That's what should be in our books that teaches us the way forward. Live like these individuals, and you can see the promised land. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Wow, I just really, really want to salute this whole discussion. And when you said be like Yeshua, I almost thought you were about to say be like Yeshitela.
Yeah.
So we're nearing towards the end, and President Kalambayi will give you an opportunity to make some closing remarks. But I just want to read some of these comments that are coming through, and we did end up getting some questions towards the end, but some of these comments from Righteous Truth on YouTube says, I was there to hear the chairman say this live. This changed my whole world. Comrade Yabinga, who was also there, said this was an impactful presentation, contextualized Christianity in a way that pushes people towards our own philosophy of resistance rather than compliance with our oppression.
Yabinga was the one who I was saying, what does that say? And he was reading some of the scripture. Uhuru, go ahead. Yeah.
Uhuru. And we have YouTube user Radio Vaz de Africa says, this was the best speech and theology school that taught me the most. Omali will go down in history as one of the greatest African philosophical thinkers of this era. President, you are a great sister. You have made an in-depth analysis of the social factors of the passage from Judaism to Constantine. And yeah, so those are, some of the incredible comments that have been coming in. And unfortunately, now we are down to time. So what we want to do is allow for closing remarks from President Kalambayi of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And then Chairman will pass it to you to close out. Also, I did see a question about how to join the African People's Socialist Party. So again, go to apspuhuru.org. If my chat moderators could put that in the comment section, apspuhuru.org to join. And for those who are asking, where can you watch this full presentation? It is available on the Burning Spear TV YouTube channel. If Jesus was a revolutionary, how come your preacher is such an Uncle Tom? Look for that title. It will be on our YouTube. All right. So with that, President Kalambayi, please.
Director Keeling, if it's not too disruptive, and you know better than I whether it is or not, because I know we, radio and other things as well. But if it's not too disruptive, I mean, we could go another 10 minutes over. I mean, this is, what's this called? Easter or something like that. So, I mean, I think people expect this and on today, certainly people who go into these churches and things, Uhuru. So if it's not disruptive, if it is, adelante. Yeah,
Uhuru, I don't have a problem with it. So let's go ahead and take this question that came in from Comrade Asa in Occupied Azania, who says, Chairman, as I have run into this discussion amongst comrades a lot of times with varying results, how would you suggest we win religious Africans, Chairman, especially without being subjective?
Well, the thing that I learned a long time ago as an organizer in SNCC, I think we used to say this, that the thing that we do is we moved away from trying to win the preachers and we win the congregation because the preachers might have a lifestyle and going in some other directions, but the congregation of people who have to face the police every day, have to worry about how to get their children out of jail, get education, schools, etc. So we organize among the masses of the people, and that we're not engaged in that kind of struggle. The philosophical materialism prevails at the moment that we take on the real issues that people are confronted with. And that's what I would suggest to you. And the only time we would find ourselves really having to have this battle is when churches and preachers try to block the people from becoming free. So my suggestion is that our primary work is to organize African people around the oppression that we experience, and in the process of doing that, explain the world, helping the people to see how they can locate the contradictions, general contradictions that we suffer from, the universal contradiction in these particular problems that they experience every day of their lives. That's what we have to do. And so I hope that was a sufficient response, but that's the main thing. We're not getting into some kind of, what do you call it? Some kind of religious battle, We're getting in a battle, for liberation. And only if religion gets in the way, that's the thing that becomes an issue, even though our work all the time is to elevate the people's consciousness beyond superstition, because that's really, really important. We don't want people to be enslaved by anything. And the thing is, as Comrade Kalambayi mentioned earlier, that there's nothing that we cannot know. There's a lot that we don't know, but anything that gets in your way to tell you that this is too profound, this is godlike, and you can't understand this, then our objective is to help people to recapture their own sense of significance as human beings who have to create the world that we live in. Uhuru. I saw Comrade President Kalambayi about to say something.
Yeah, I just was uniting with what you're saying, just really, really appreciating what you're saying. As soldiers on the grounds, that's so critical, because even when I met the movement, I always use my, how I met the movement, and Chairman recruited me, and Gaida was my sponsor. What I seen, no one told me not to be a Christian. Like nobody said, and so it was bringing me into understanding the struggle of liberation. And through that, people come to all kinds of conclusions. So it was like, hold on to your God. If that's who you believe, you truly believe, then you want to see people be free. You want to be free. You want people, you want the misery around you to end. So I think that's something that all of us should take away from here. Like when we walk, when we organizing, because we're going to meet not only Christians, but all kind of spookism in many forms, because sometimes we could get stuck on just Christianity, but all of them is a form of relax, don't do something, and the rocks and the sage is going to somehow liberate you and free you or heal you out of this. And none of that's going to get us free. And so, this discussion of Christianity is a discussion about spookism as a whole. And as organizers need to do exactly what I just really appreciate what Chairman said. That's, I take them right back to liberation. They go, I'm like, well, I go back to, the struggle. You take them right back to the struggle that they feel every day, and like Chairman said, the masses of the people hear what you're saying. Now, the pastor, he has a different agenda. He has a different stake. You know what I'm saying? Because he found some comfortability. Now he's just a pimp of the church. So he pimps the people on this dope called spookism to keep them sick, because that's how he get paid. So, you know, don't go there for, you know, like, so he got a whole nother game, but the people you putting them on game, you know what I'm saying? And you helping them to be able to see, you know what I'm saying? And then they could come to those conclusions. So I really appreciate what you said, Chairman.
I remember many years ago, Comrade Director, I saw, and you've heard me mention this before, a documentary that was made about Cuba. And this was during a time before the US, the collapse of the Soviet Union. US was able to bring so much suffering back to the people in Cuba. But after the revolution, I saw this documentary, and they showed how before the Cuban Revolution, like all the Black people and poor people were in the churches praying. But after the revolution, the people left the churches, and who you saw in the churches was the white people and the people who had previously been wealthy. And of course, this was because now the poor people had access to their own power. They didn't have to pray for God to do shit. They just got the community together, and then say, we need some houses over here, we need some healthcare over here, and they organized it on the ground. But the rich people and the white people who lived off of them in the past, now they're the ones in church, you know, praying for stuff because they no longer have the power. And I just think that dramatic transformation, I think that's just real clear, you know, situation. And that's why the colonizer, the white man, the colonizer would make sure that people are incapable of solving our own problems. And if you can't solve your own problems, then you rely on these mysterious forces. And the white man is the most mysterious force that you end up relying on. And whether you think about it or not, you know, that becomes like the God figure in our existence. And so I thought that was really important what was said. And also we find that many people find a way to find the spook, you know, and it doesn't have to be a Christian spook, right? And so some people say that, you know, what we need is our own Black God, or we need, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you know, you still, you know, it's like Black Santa Claus, you know what I mean? Or something, you know, like to that effect. You know, you have a mystery in your own, you know, look like you, as opposed to freeing the brains, freeing people, let the people know what the possibilities are that human beings can bring into reality and don't have to rely on any kind of mysterious force from any place else. We can do it, Uhuru.
Uhuru, really want to appreciate that. And I don't want to take it up. I'm not really a panelist, but I just really appreciate that because, you know, when we find ourselves organizing on a day-to-day basis, we are organizing around this question of colonialism. So we don't, I don't know how many times people have really got holed up at, you know, debates and knocking on people's door talking about religion, you know, so it's like we're, you know, sticking to the African internationalist understanding of the world. And that's what we're, you know, going with. And we find that we're able to win all kinds of people. And I really appreciate how, you know, we've said that Christianity is not this only form of, you know, like spookism or something that we're dealing with. I was thinking of Du Bois-isms and, you know, all this kind of stuff that we're daily basis. You know, that we have.
I remember Malcolm X, though, he said that, I believe in that old time religion. You know, like that grandma and grandpa used to believe in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, yes, and a head for a head. That's that old time religion. That's Nat Turner kind of religion. You understand? And so, so go ahead, comrade. Uhuru.
Uhuru, yes. So we had a question from Comrade Mwezi in San Diego, and it's building off of Asa's question and asking you, Chairman, and also President Kalambayi, if you want to chime in, if you could speak to the creation of the African Redemption Church.
We at one time, we had, I think it even came out of one of my congresses, and we may have even had something in the Constitution. I don't know if it's still there or not, but we had talked about creating an African Redemption Church. with the objective of going into those churches and taking our people, bringing our people into revolutionary activity, revolutionary participation. Because so many people, in fact, I have something on my desk right now that came from someone we were working with many years ago. And he's a minister himself, wanting to rehabilitate out of California, the African Redemption Church. So that's something that we had talked about for a moment, but our experience was that even when we were trying to do that, most of the people who we were bringing into the process were philosophical idealists. And no matter how much they quote unquote believed in the revolution, et cetera, they always fell back on philosophical idealism, which was extremely problematic. So Garvey was quite successful in bringing sectors, religious sectors, into an overall movement. Garvey there were some differences in the kind of movement that Garvey created, though it's something that we still, look at because we want to help people move from this purely philosophical, idealistic position. And so, we look at it because even Malcolm was inconsistent materialist. There was an aspect of what he, promoted and put forth, and that was idealistic based on religion. And then, of course, it was clear cut. And in fact, there was this materialist aspect that resulted in Malcolm's split and with the Nation of Islam, and why he became a problem, because he was, as they said, too much out in the world. He was, his articulations, and that's familiar to any of us who's been in the church of any kind. When you're out there in the world, you get too worldly as opposed to, otherwise. So I know it's not a good response from Wazy, but it's something that we obviously have to take, think about, because so many of our people, and you go all over Africa in particular, the poorest people in the poorest communities, you see these huge institutions, religious institutions, Christian institutions primarily, but not just Christians. In many instances, you will find Islamic institutions where the poorest people are putting all their resources into these institutions that could be going to institutions, to entities that would free us while we're on earth.
Uhuru, Chairman. And I really appreciate this answer. And I think that it's just representative of how the party over the last 50 years has struggled to solve all the problems of the revolution, and with the whole question of philosophical idealism, obviously that was taken on with the development of African internationalism. And I would also just add to that, I'm just going to plug Black Power 96 Radio. And I want to do that because we have gospel programming on our station. One of our biggest support bases in St. Pete is the gospel community, which is the African working class community here. And we have the station manager, the world's best blind DJ, who is right now broadcasting this study, who, gives the gospel and inserts African internationalism the entire time. And, so I just, we're doing this,
I think that's right. I heard DJ Eddie one day who was saying that some minister says Black Power 96 is anointed. And every day on Black Power 96, in addition to whatever else you hear this is point number such and such from the African People's Socialist Party 14-point program. This is a part of the mission of this radio station to deal with the educational disparity in the African community, point number one, and that's something that happens on a regular basis. And that's coming from the leadership of DJ Eddie, the best blind DJ in the world. And so they didn't get to him that way, but he said, I can't see nothing, but I can feel everything. So, Uhuru,
Chairman. So we continuously take on this question, and I think it's really, go ahead.
I was just going to add a little bit. I was just going to say that, here in St. Louis, when we were engaged in campaigns and rallies, under the chairman's leadership, just a call to build, we went after the churches and started having mass meetings that were Sunday rallies, and we would have spiritual rallies, and we will invite different pastors that we could work with. We didn't even expect them to have a line. We brought them there to bring the congregation there. And then, and it was great. It was great to allow them an opportunity to understand the Uhuru means freedom. And it was also an opportunity to deepen and hold the church accountable to the community that they represent too. So I just wanted to mention that. And even right now, like organizing everywhere and taking up all the spaces and never, ever allowing any space that we are not impacting. We don't want to have any space that is not being, taken up by revolutionaries, where we are using that opportunity to recruit and win and and cause havoc in that space, that it can't go on as business as usual. So
let me say, go ahead. I'm sorry, comment.
I'm sorry, Chairman. That's it.
When I came to St. Louis to do political work after the murder of Mike Brown in 2014, and I was on Canfield Drive, where maybe a few yards from where Mike Brown had been murdered by the state, by the colonial state, by the empire. And I initiated an impromptu speech to the people who were there. I was in the middle of the street and somebody had a microphone, and I took it. And there was this preacher who was there. And after I finished speaking, and he had his congregation with him, which is really unusual for him to come with his congregation. And after I spoke, he came up to me and he says, told me his name. So I want you to come to my church. I want you to speak to my church, and gave me his card. I said, thank you, etc. And I didn't go. And then something else was happening, and rallies, all kinds of rallies. And I spoke again. And he came up to me and said, I told you I want you to come to my church. So I thought, he was just talking. And so I ended up, and I went to his church, and it was a great experience. And the preacher, he said to me, he said, I have a dog in this fight because the police killed my brother in some other city where he was from, because he's colonized too, you see. And the preachers are, and some of them are able, honest enough, that this guy brought his congregation. And this guy asked me to come speak to his church, at his church. And preachers are reluctant to do that because they make their living off being able to keep that congregation for themselves and not to share with somebody else and what have you. And to put me in the pulpit, was really extraordinary. That was, and I'm saying we can have those kinds of relationships, important. And that was Reverend Booker. Yeah, Booker, right here in St. Louis.
He ordained you too.
He did what?
I said he ordained you as a minister. Minister Chairman Yeshitela.
Yeah, and the point is that we talk about two things. One, we talk about philosophical idealism and philosophical contradictions that we are contesting with and contention with. And the other thing that I really want us to remember is that revolution is a science and an art. And just because you know all the science, when talking about society, doesn't mean that you've developed the art to make it happen. Kalambayi can go into any situation like that, and this whole art of being able to read and access people and audiences and what have you is powerful. And to recognize that our people suffer under colonial domination, whatever philosophical views they may have, and that in most instances, the philosophical view is due to being dominated by the colonizer and not having access to any other view. And so how do they get access to some other view? As revolutionaries have to take it to them. And you can't take it to them if you go there attacking them. So they can't be attacked, right? You can attack the error that was made over here. You can say, this is a better way, I think, et cetera, but the objective is to take it, to them. You fellows seldom find where, when you look at the historical Yeshua that we talk about, you seldom find him going to scripture and chapter and saying this and that. He is waging struggle on the ground and bringing people with him. And so I just think that's really important. In fact, he was having to fight against those people who were always coming up to him with scripture and saying, this is why you can't do what you're doing. So anyway.
Yes.
Uhuru.
So good.
Uhuru, absolutely. Well, Chairman, I think we are going to move towards the close now. And I just really want to appreciate this discussion. I don't want to end it. I know we got a couple of other things to do a little bit later today. So, but I just really want to salute this discussion. And like I said, it's receiving such an overwhelming supportive response in our chat section. So President Kalambayi, really want to appreciate you for being a guest on today's Omali Taught Me Sunday Study, and want to offer this time for you to make any closing remarks, and then Chairman, we'll pass it to you.
Uhuru, this has been great. I really appreciate and consider the honor to be here. If you are in the St. Louis, I want to start at the top of this. If you're in the St. Louis area, you got to come out to the One Africa, One Nation Farmers Market. This is concretely what Black Power looks like. This is what it feels like. This is a great way to bring all of the masses, no matter what, where you at in political education or whatever, out to concretely say how we take our community back. So I just wanted to say that. And, I was thinking about my kids that have a different experience than I do, because Brooklyn was 3 and Brianna was like 2 when I came into the work, and now they're 11 and 9. And, they came from a place and was introduced to these politics where they don't have fear like I had. They don't have a notion that they shouldn't fight for their freedom. Even yesterday when I was trying to cutely tell Brooklyn that they were telling some other young kids were telling her that she should take her booth to the African Americans market. Brooklyn's like, I'm not American. Why would I go there? And I'm like, Brooklyn, I'm trying to we're going to help them understand. We're going to drop the word American, but, and she just have no concept of that, and I think that's what I'm most proud of.
A child shall lead them.
Yes. I am most proud of what I have been able to give my kids in my community, that they don't have even an understanding of not fighting for their liberation or being afraid of spookism or any of those things, because they didn't have that poison meat. And so that's why it's so important for all of us to decolonize our minds. And we do that not on our own, but we come into organization. And so wherever you are in your development, join the Uhuru movement. It's all branches of our organization. InPDUM is an organization that I lead, the International People Democratic Uhuru Movement. You can go to InPDUM.org and sign up, find out about us, but you do not have another hour, another day to sit on the sidelines. We must organize and come into political education to teach us who we are, so we could be free to be the African people that we want to be. And everything that has been given to us is to keep us dimmed down, and we can't be our full potential. So come into organization, join the African People's Socialist Party, join InPDUM, join the Uhuru movement. And thank you, Chairman, for this opportunity to be here this morning. Uhuru.
A comment, Director, we don't have time for you to say where people were viewing from.
Uhuru, Chairman, I could make that note.
If we don't, you go ahead and, I don't want to be pushing it. I know I pushed us already beyond our time frame, so it's all right.
It's a little extra push. It's just, so Chicago, Illinois, Huntsville, Alabama, occupied Azania or South Africa, San Diego, California, Marion County, Georgia, Oakland, California, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, London, Portland, Oregon, St. Louis, Missouri, Richmond, Virginia, Battle Creek, Michigan, St. Petersburg, Florida, Fort Myers, Florida, Houston, Texas, Tampa, Florida, Grenada, West Indies, and Brooklyn, New York checked in this morning.
Uhuru. Good. Grenada.
Grenada.
Uhuru. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And it's been said before, but you can join this movement, and you should join this movement. And all the information is there for you. APSP, Uhuru.org, and Burning Spear. Is that the Burning Spear? What?
Burningspear.com.
.com. Uhuru. Thank you.
Uhuru, Chairman, President Kalambayi, and comrades, this has been yet another profound discussion. I want to thank our guests and salute the leadership of the chairman. And make sure to follow the chairman on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to the Burning Spear TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study. Again, watch If Jesus Was a Revolutionary on the Burning Spear TV, and take note that Omali Taught Me will have a new start time beginning May 1st, 2022. Write it down in your calendars that the Sunday study will begin airing at 10 a.m. Eastern starting May 1st. So build the African Revolution, vanguard up, Uhuru, comrades. Uhuru.
Uhuru.